Hey everyone, welcome to Switchback Off-Road. I'm Ben, and today I want to show you how to swap a 392 steering wheel and paddle shifters into your Jeep Wrangler or Gladiator. I've got everything I need right here. You're going to need a 24mm socket, a little tiny flathead screwdriver, and a 10mm. And then you'll also need a T10 Torx bit later on. Getting started, you're going to pop these two side tabs on the sides of the steering wheel. Simply do this by prying them out. Then you got two 10mm bolts inside here. Once those bolts are out, you can set them aside, and you can set your 10mm aside, and now your airbag is going to come out. There's a small little tab on there. I broke it the last time I did this, and now I know you're probably thinking, isn't that already a 392 steering wheel? Yes, it is. We recorded a video a couple weeks ago of us replacing this, and we did some things that we didn't know were required in order to do this swap. And so I had to order a few more things to make it 100% correct. So we're redoing this video today, and I broke that red tab a couple weeks ago, so I'm going to save that. The order that your airbag switches come off is blue first, then yellow, and then finally black. And then you've got this horn switch down here at the bottom. You can grab your small screwdriver again. And I'm going to do that a lot more times, I feel like. So what you want to do with this, take your tiny screwdriver, stick it up underneath this tab. It'll pop this tab off right here. And then you can set your horn and airbag aside. And then next up, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect our harness from the steering column. Using your little screwdriver, you can kind of push this tab in and pull it out like so. This one just has one thick tab on the outside. You can pull it out like that. And then finally, you take your 24mm and just zip this off. And being that these vehicles are new, steering wheel should just pull right off very easily. And now we're going to take this inside, and I'm going to show you what you need to do to be able to swap all this over. So first, let me show you why you cannot just swap over a steering wheel frame. There's these back tabs that have your volume controls, and they just don't sit in there right. You can see the gaps. There's a little bit of an indentation here. They just don't line up because the 392 steering wheel was designed to have those paddle shifters. Now, I gotta be honest, the only reason I'm doing this is because of the looks. I really do think that the steering wheel just looks cool. Even over some aftermarket options, I looked at some. I did not want to pay a fortune to have all these custom looking steering wheels. I knew I could get a 392 steering wheel for a relatively good price, and it would look just as good. I love the perforated leather. I love that it's a little bit thicker. It's just a good design, and I could not swap over a Mojave steering wheel because I wanted to have the red stitching to match everything in the Rubicon. So let's go through a couple of parts that you're going to need in order to do this the right way. The most important one is going to be your steering wheel harness. It does replace the one that you've got because the radio controls and the volume buttons, they are not the same. Your Gladiator, Sahara, Overland, or Sport S, or Willys Jeeps are only going to have a 2-pin connector on this back side. You need that third pin for the paddle shifters to work, which we have here. So let me give you these part numbers here real quick. I'll also put them in the description below. The steering wheel harness is there. You can pause and take a snapshot if you needed to. The downshift paddle, or excuse me, this is the upshift paddle, is right there. I got these from mopargenuineparts.com, and make sure you've got the correct part number on there. They accidentally sent me, they sent me 2 downshift paddles on accident because their bags were mislabeled. So just check your parts before you take everything out to install it. So this is your upshift paddle, should end in 7853. This is your downshift paddle, should end in 7852. And then you've got these little plastic covers to cover your screws on the back. This ends in 5662. So those are your parts you're going to need. Next up, I'm going to grab some Torx bits. We're going to pop these covers off right here. And I can actually throw these away because I will not be reusing them. Next, you'll grab a T20 Torx bit, and you can just begin to loosen these screws up. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 T20 Torx screws. 4 in the center section of the steering wheel, and then there are 2 more screws here at the bottom, and this thing should just pull apart. All right, for these last 2 screws on the bottom, you're going to grab a T10, and I did not have this Torx bit the last time we tried to do this, and I was able to get by with a little tiny screwdriver, but doing that risks stripping out the plastic, so I don't recommend. This is a T10, there's 2 of those down there. With those pulled out, I'm going to pull out my volume control buttons. These have some really small tabs that you have to really press down to get out. All right, with those out, I'm going to flip this around. And now something really important is to kind of look at the orientation of your harness. And I'm going to go ahead and get my new one out so I can kind of get that in the right position. I have a fairly good idea of how it goes. I know that one side controls cruise control and adaptive cruise control and all that, but just to be prepared. So I see on the main harness that I have my clips here, my white goes here. So this goes to my right side buttons, this goes to my left side buttons. So now that I'm going to kind of leave that in that orientation, now I can pull apart all this plastic. Be very careful not to break any clips. So what I'm going to do is disconnect my menu control side, my cruise control side. I can pull this top section out. This would also apply if you were wanting to change out the color of your bezel. I know some of the earlier models had chrome in there. This is the same exact process for any of that as well. All right. Next up, I'm going to pull off the back cover. And if you have a heated steering wheel, your controls for that are going to be down here as well. And so the way that you disconnect those is you slide your screwdriver in between. Comes out like that on that side. And then the other side with the blue and black wire has a tab on the side you can just pull and disconnect. So your wire harness sits in there like that. The next step to take is just to replace your main one with your new one. If you do break any of the tabs on your old harness, it is fine because you are getting a new harness. What I am going to do before I just throw this in is I'm going to double check all my pins and connectors and just make sure that I have each one accounted for. And make sure that everything in here is going to line up correctly. So I've got a blue and a green there. Have a couple extra pins in this main connection because of our paddle shifters. And everything looks good here. So I'm going to set our old harness aside. And now we're going to start sitting our new one in there. So what I'm doing here is I've gone ahead and plugged in my easiest wires to locate, just to keep everything as simple as possible. I know that this plugs into one part of the heated steering wheel and this plugs into the other part. So I've got those in, and then what I'm going to do is actually wrap this up around the steering wheel, and I know that these two top clips go in these two holes here. So I'm going to go ahead and clip those in, and I know that this wiring harness is supposed to sit in this little piece here. So now what I'm going to do is just kind of sit this in here loosely, and I know that this clip goes into here for the heated steering wheel, so we can clip that in. And then I know that this side slides in specifically over here. All right, we've got that slid in. So now what I'm going to do with the rest of this stuff is just begin to tuck it into its clips that hold it. And I'm going a little bit slow here, for one, to make it right, but also I want to make sure that my trim lines up with everything smoothly. Make sure that nothing's interfering with your mounting holes. So I'm just going to kind of start holding this back piece by the bottom here. All right, now I'm pretty sure I've got everything to where it's not interfering. It's not in the way. I've got my paddle shifter plugs ran where they need to be. All right, when you're done with this step, you should have something like this. These white wires should be tucked in down here. This piece runs across this back seam, and I'm gonna kind of go through and make sure that that's tucked in nicely so it's not showing. There is a groove for it in there, but just kind of make sure it's all going together like it should. All right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of hold this with my 2 fingers to give it some pressure. And then I'm going to think about this side. So I'm going to plug in, might need an extra set of hands to do this, I'm not sure. I'm going to plug in my cruise control side here first. Make sure it clips. And then I'm going to plug in my radio control side here. All right, so I got those both clipped in. Now I'm going to make sure I've got this wire coming out so I can connect it with the horn. And then again, make sure your paddle shifter wires and volume control wires are going out. Make sure they're already kind of pre-run. There are some little grooves for them. Kind of hard to show you this, but doing my best here. Your mounting screws for this front plate will kind of give you a little bit of a guide for where some of your wiring needs to go, but don't just force any of this stuff down. Just kind of keep working it in. Make sure your wires are sticking out. All right, I think I've got all this fairly close to where it's going to be. So now I'm going to press this down into its resting spot. It does kind of somewhat snap together. But it is definitely tricky to get all to fit properly. Good little rule of thumb is if you have to force anything, to go in, double check it. Ah, there we go. So my bottom half, as you heard, just snapped together. I feel like the top should do the same, or at least start to look correct. But it is a tight fit because it's supposed to look clean. So, all right, I think I've finally got that in. I'm gonna go ahead and mount my bottom screws with my T20. And then I'm gonna work on my top ones just a little bit more to make sure everything is clean and sitting like it's supposed to. These are plastic screws, so you want to get them snug, but don't over torque them, because once you strip out plastic, you'll have to go find you a bigger bolt. So I can already see, since I took my pressure off of the bottom, that my two heated steering wheel wires kind of poke back out again. So I'm going to stick those in there. There's a little bit of adhesive in there too to kind of hold it all together. All right, now I think that I've got those set properly. I'll go ahead and do those with my T10, and especially on those being smaller, do not over torque them. And I'm going to check my gaps here. That is all looking very nice. All right, so now you've got all that in, and now I'm just going to go through everything. I'm going to make sure my wires for my paddle shifters are free. There is a little channel for them to kind of sneak through, so you just kind of make sure they're free, make sure everything else is run properly, make sure that where your airbag mounts in, make sure that hole is clear and free. Just kind of working your way around there. And then once you're confident in all of that, we can go ahead and mount our top screws. I'm kind of trying to hold these edges together so that they don't shift and I don't have to go back and redo this. Everything's tucked in nicely beforehand. I'm trying to keep it that way. All right, if you need a wiring diagram, this is how it should look. All your stuff should be tucked in. These are the only two connections that should be sticking out. This goes to your horn, but everything else is tucked in. These two are sticking out for our paddle shifters, and we're about to put those in next. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, we're gonna grab our upshift paddle. Again, this has 3 prongs inside, and this goes on this side. So we're gonna go ahead and plug this in. Clips in just like so. And then you got a little tab right here that kind of slides in. And then you take your Torx bit, screw this side in. And that should pull your front bezel even closer to all your leather. Oh, that's gonna be great. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and take my clips. So find your right hand clip. It should say on it which one it is. There you go, RH, that's the right hand side. And what you do is you stick this tab in right here, just press it down. Do the same thing for the upshift side. Get your connector with 3 prongs. Got your little tab there. I've got a little bit of extra slack on this side, so I'm going to pull that back through just a little bit. That should give me plenty of room right there. And we can take our screw, put it in there, get it nice and snug. Then you take your cap, and there you go. We got our paddle shifters on. And now we can just throw it right back in the Jeep. And then I've got one other important step to show you. All right, we've lost a little bit of our light, but we're gonna go ahead and finish this video out. What you need to do is just snake your airbag wires back through the right side hole. All right, then put your steering wheel back on. Should only go one way. And then I'm gonna go ahead and plug these clips in to get them out of the way. Kind of find the orientation they go in. Slide them in. Clip 1 and clip 2. That new wiring harness is pretty stiff to work with. All right, looks like I still got a little bit of blue Loctite left on this nut, so I'm gonna not worry about putting any on there. If you're scared about it coming off, you can if you want to. All right, so I'm going to start this bolt by hand. Then I'm going to grab my drill. I've got it set to the highest torque setting. And then you just zip it on. I'm going to give it about 3 ugga-duggas. Yeah, that was 4. Can never be too safe. But that's about the position that the nut was on beforehand. So that's good. All right, and now with your airbag, we're gonna go just in reverse order, get the orientation correct, and then plug in your horn. And hopefully, once I do this, the last time we did this, I was having to push the horn in to get the mounting bolts back in. But as far as the airbag goes, you're going to plug things back in the same order that they came out. Yellow clip second, push your red tabs down, blue clip last. Lighting is probably not very good. And I did just do this with the battery still connected, if you were wondering. I did a little bit of research, and it is not 100% necessary to disconnect the battery on some of these newer vehicles. So to save some time, I did not. Tighten these 10mm bolts back up. All right, and then you put your plastic tabs back on. This goes on the left. They are marked if you do not remember which one went where. All right, and there you have it. We are officially in a Jeep Gladiator with a 392 steering wheel. Let me zoom out here just a little bit. There you go. It looks great. If you're wanting to do this, you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I will be happy to answer anything you got. I will also put those part numbers in the description below. My biggest reason for doing this, when we were out in Colorado and we were on some of these trails, being my first time wheeling the Gladiator, I just thought, man, it would be so cool if I had this just touch of a button right here to be able to downshift, upshift, especially in low range with that lower transfer case ratio. I just thought that would be super cool. So I am actually doing this for a little bit of functionality, but golly, it does look cool at the same time. So I definitely recommend it. I think it looks great, and would love to help you guys out if you have any questions. As we can just continue to grow, if you would, please subscribe. We're trying to now hit that 600 mark, I believe. So please just like, subscribe, share. If you want to follow us along on Instagram, you can follow us there at switchback.offroad. I would love to interact with you guys and just get to know you. So thanks again for watching. We hope to see you on the next adventure, and until that next time, I hope you have a great week ahead of you. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.